Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer for HIS 106. Today we're going to be tracking the completely fascinating life cycle of ancient artifacts. We're going to follow these incredible pieces of history from the exact moment they're uncovered in the soil all the way to their final resting place in an exhibition hall. You can really think of archaeology as the ultimate detective work, but instead of solving a recent crime, you're piecing together the mystery of how early Nigerians lived thousands and thousands of years ago, way before anything was ever written down.
But before we dig in, and yeah, that pun is absolutely intended, I really want to officially credit the brilliant mind behind this course, lecturer in charge Raji A.F. Tour. The entire structural foundation of our journey today comes directly from their comprehensive notes. And hey, you can easily reach out to them at raji.athes@fou.edu.ng for any academic follow-ups or if you want to deep dive into the coursework.
All right, let's just run through our agenda for today real quick. We're going to logically guide you through the artifacts journey by covering the archaeologist's toolkit, the timeline of major sites, legendary ancient artifacts, museums and artifact preservation, and then we'll finish up with a glossary and exam summary.
Section 1. The Archaeologist's Toolkit. How we find the past.
Okay, so our journey literally begins out in the field. This breakdown perfectly illustrates the sequential steps of discovery. It shows that a tremendous amount of really meticulous scientific work happens way before a single shovel ever hits the dirt. It's a highly calculated progression from wide-scale observation down to targeted, systematic digging.
First up is reconnaissance. Honestly, this is simply walking the ground to spot exposed pottery fragments, unusual stones, or distinct soil discolorations. It's exactly like scouting a movie location. You're just visually surveying the landscape for those tiny clues that hint at a much larger story hiding just beneath the surface.
But what about the clues we can't see? Well, when we need to see underground without actually digging, we use tools like ground-penetrating radar, or GPR. This effectively acts as an X-ray machine for the Earth. It allows us to map out buried structures, ancient walls, and artifacts with incredible precision without disturbing a single grain of soil, and surprisingly enough, this is the exact same tech city engineers use to find buried utility lines today. How cool is that?
Section 2. Timeline of major sites. When and where.
Now, what's really interesting to visualize here is exactly where these ancient civilizations popped up across Nigeria's incredibly diverse landscapes. Notice how these major discoveries aren't just clustered in one spot. They're spread all across different ecological zones. They trace ancient rivers like the Niger and Benue, which highlights how early settlements and trade routes were just so deeply interconnected with the geography and the water sources of the region.
Let's look at how this builds chronologically, starting all the way back with our oldest known sites, like Dufana and Iwo-Eluru. Just look at the immense, staggering span of history here. Iwo-Eluru takes us back roughly 12,000 years before the present, literally 12 millennia. And from those incredibly ancient roots, we see the subsequent rise of the Nok culture, Igbo-Ugwu, Ife, and Benin over the millennia.
Section 3. Legendary Ancient Artifacts. Unearthing History.
So, the really crucial point here is what these items actually tell us about the sheer brilliance of early societies once we carefully pull them from the ground. Sites like Nok and Igbo-Ugwu, they completely changed global historical narratives through their astonishingly sophisticated creations. The Nok culture is world famous for its highly expressive, fired clay terracotta figurines dating back over 2,000 years. Meanwhile, Igbo-Ugwu is globally renowned for highly intricate, early bronze masterpieces, proving an incredibly advanced mastery of metalworking long before there was any European contact.
This side-by-side comparison clearly breaks down the distinct yet equally brilliant metalwork traditions of Ife and Benin. Ife is globally celebrated for its highly naturalistic, classical bronzes and terracottas. Benin, on the other hand, is absolutely iconic for its majestic brass plaques and incredibly detailed ivories. Both of these kingdoms produced works that don't just define regional history, they undeniably rank among the absolute finest metalwork ever created in human history.
Section 4. Museums and Artifact Preservation. Protecting Heritage.
Once an artifact is analyzed, it obviously needs a safe home. And let me be clear, a museum is not just a fancy storage unit. This preservation life cycle ensures an object is safely acquired, chemically stabilized, and conserved to stop any further decay, beautifully exhibited to tell a meaningful historical story to the public, and meticulously documented so researchers have exact records of its origin and condition. It's a whole process.
If you actually want to see this preservation in action locally, this maps out exactly which national museums you can visit to see these magnificent artifacts preserved and displayed in person. You can go view the Nok and Igbo Ukwu treasures in Lagos, you can see the stunning classical bronzes in Ife, and you can marvel at the iconic brass plaques right in Benin City. Section 5. Glossary and Exam Summary. Preparing for Success. All right, let's wrap up with a foundational review designed specifically to help you ace those HIS 106 exams. First, remember the strict definition of an artifact. It must be a portable object specifically made, used, or modified by human hands. Whether it's an iron tool or a simple clay pot, direct human intervention is the defining factor.
Now, conversely, we have the ecofact. This is a natural material, think ancient seeds, pollen, or animal bones. Humans didn't craft them, but finding them in an excavation site still provides archaeologists with absolutely vital historical clues about the climate and exactly what those early societies were eating.
And to figure out exactly how old those organic items actually are, we rely heavily on the scientific process of radiocarbon dating. Basically, by measuring the known decay rate of carbon-14, scientists can accurately determine the age of organic materials up to about 50,000 years old. It's a total game changer for piecing together the timeline. Seriously, take a screenshot of this slide right now. It is your ultimate exam cheat sheet, synthesizing the artifact's entire journey from the Earth to the museum. Keep these core concepts fresh in your mind for test day. The toolkit, the oldest sites of Dufana and Iwaleru, the art masters, and the specific roles of the museum. Finally, I'm going to leave you with a pretty provocative thought about a massive global debate on heritage, the Benin Bronzes controversy. Many of these absolutely incredible items were taken to Europe during the colonial period, and today there's an intense global conversation about whether these objects should be returned to Nigeria. How should the international community handle the return of these historical treasures? It is a deeply complex discussion with very strong arguments across the globe. And as students of history, it's a reality you'll need to critically examine yourself. Thank you so much for exploring the archaeology of Nigeria with me today, and happy studying.